and welcome to AP on Play. This morning's guest is Mike McCready, Bloomfield Township Supervisor. Some of you might remember him from last year. He sat with us last fall and talked all about his ideas and what Bloomfield Township was doing right, what Bloomfield Township was doing wrong. And I've invited him back today to give us an update in the last 6 months. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Anjali.
Mike, I think most of our viewers know you, but let's hear a little bit about your background just to remind them where you come from, what drives you, what's your experience.
Well, I grew up in the area, went to the Birmingham Public Schools, attended Oakland Community College, and then transferred into Western Michigan University. And then moved back into the area about a year or two after college. I had a little stint. I worked for a company in Lansing, and then they moved me back over to this side of the state, and had a career as a manufacturer's rep, and then moved on from that business into the public life. I was a city commissioner in the city of Bloomfield Hills for about 5 years, and prior to that, I started on the zoning board in Bloomfield Hills. And at the time in Bloomfield Hills, zoning issues were generators were new, starting to come in.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, and now they're plentiful. They're everywhere.
Yes.
They're everywhere. But I enjoyed it, and then I moved into the legislature, the state legislature in 2013. I started January. So the November of 2012, I was elected to the State House. Served 6 terms. When I was done, Brooks Patterson appointed me to a position as Economic Development Director for Oakland County. And then I served in a role as Economic Development Director for the county until Brooks passed away and Dave Coulter took over. And then I worked for Dave as more of a senior business advisor to him. And then eventually they put me into a role of a community affairs person. And as the new administration came in, they were kind of bringing in their own people. So I decided I think it'd be best if I moved out of that role. And I went over to the city of Novi and was their director of economic development for 3 years.
Okay.
And that's a wonderful community with some very good people in there, very diverse community, large business tech parks. They do really well at recruiting tier 1, tier 2 suppliers and engineering firms into their community. And they've had big growth in the home market, neighborhood after neighborhood going up.
Novi looks totally different from when I was growing up. In the I guess from the early 80s to now, you wouldn't even recognize it.
Right. Yeah, I that's what people say.
It's spectacular.
The lifers over there.
Yes.
Talk about that. It's changed quite a bit. Because I remember, I think when we were maybe in late elementary school or junior high, at the time it was junior high, that mall, 12 Oaks Mall, was built.
12 Oaks,
and
yes.
to go out there was a big fun field trip.
Yeah, yes, and that was the only thing in town was 12 Oaks Mall.
Yeah. Right, yeah, so really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And it was fun. I really enjoyed working with the people there and getting to know the community, very wonderful community. But my last year there, it was very difficult to get there because of all the road construction. And we just referred to Novi as ground zero for road construction because they had MDOT working on the highway. They had the Road Commission of Oakland County working on the mile roads or other roads.
Right.
They had GLEWA, which is the Great Lakes Water Authority, working on a water main. Oh, it just seemed like forever at like 11 mile, but down Meadowbrook Road, which is a main artery.
Yeah, right.
And then they had their own DPW fixing and repairing roads. I mean, it was just ground zero. And so getting in and out of that community was extremely difficult. Everybody was frustrated, but it's great progress. And then I moved back, obviously, to run for office. Didn't move, but I lived here. But I decided to leave Novi to run for office here.
Okay.
And was successful in the November election. And
so how many elections have you run in? Have you ever stopped to think? Because it sounds like you said in Bloomfield Hills City Council.
Yeah, Bloomfield Hills.
So that was your first election?
No, actually, I ran in Bloomfield Hills a couple times and lost.
That's what they say happens.
But the board never really changed, so you couldn't really bump an incumbent out, But I just would throw my name in.
Yeah.
Didn't make any investment in it.
Yeah.
And I remember, it was kind of funny, I would lose, and my daughters at the time were like 2 and 6, and we'd be in the car driving, and they're in their car seats, and I was talking to my wife at the time, and you lost the election, you lost again, and my daughters are in the back seat doing one of these, Dada's a loser, Dada's a loser. So you kind of take that stuff with a grain of salt now, because when you think of a little child like 2 going, Dada's a loser, it kind of puts everything
Well,
in
yeah, it keeps it
perspective.
real, right?
It does. It keeps it all real. Yeah.
But that's what they say. If you want to get into politics, you have to bank on losing your first couple elections, right?
Yeah, you just never know what's the outcome. I mean, there's polling that's done at the higher level, but at
Yes.
a local level. So it took me a few times till I finally was elected.
Oh, that's
and I
funny.
got in, but you just have to look back and smile. So I haven't really put together my win-loss record.
Well, let's see. So when you were elected
Uh-huh.
to Bloomfield Hills City Council, then did you run a few times?
I did. I
okay.
think because we were in 2-year terms, and then I think now they've changed it to 4-year terms. So we were on 2 years. So I think I ran 3 times.
Who was the city manager at that time?
When I came in, we had Jay Cravens.
Okay.
Right. And Jay was there, and then Jay left shortly, I think, after I had stepped down to become a state rep. I think in my first term, he had stepped down, and I think he and his wife were moving. I think he decided to maybe retire or do something different. And if I remember correctly, they moved south somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and now it's David Hendrickson. Who's
Yeah,
the city
David's
manager.
coming in next month.
Is he? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes, so we'll get an update from him.
Wonderful.
So, so you moved to Bloomfield Township
Mm-hmm.
before the election, ran in the election.
Well, no, I moved to Bloomfield Township actually in 2000 and I think it was 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in January 2018.
Now, that was the year of my first election.
It was.
Did you know I ran for Bloomfield Hills School Board?
No.
Why would you? Because I
Well,
didn't
I
win.
don't remember. Oh, you didn't? Okay.
We didn't know each other, and I
Yeah.
didn't win. So
Okay.
why would you?
I remember seeing maybe
Silly
your signs
question.
around
Yeah.
or something.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that was my first and only
Okay.
election.
Yeah. And school boards those are challenging elections. I mean, people are really going at it now.
I
aren't they?
was not prepared for that election.
Yeah. Oh, to what you had to go through?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. We'll talk offline about that.
Okay.
Let's stick with you.
Okay.
Let's stick.
Yeah, and Dad. Yeah. I love talking to the girls about that now because they're older and adults now.
Yeah.
So.
What a good role model, though, to just hang in there and keep running.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I enjoyed it. I decided, I really want to get involved. I was on the zoning board and enjoyed working with the people. And there was always conflicts. You always run into conflicts. You always run into disagreements. But at the end of the day, you have to make the decision to move forward. And it's negotiating and kind of come to some sort of an agreement to move forward. And you see it in every level you work at.
Yes. And some people are better at it than
They
others,
are.
I guess.
Yeah, they are. There's some people that I've worked with, I think, that are excellent legislators and administrators, and just happy to watch them and see how they operate, how they work, and take note.
Well, tell us about Bloomfield Township. Tell us about how it looked when you inherited the township and what it looks like now.
Well, what we've inherited is a community with bad roads, and that's been one of our largest and most vocal issues within the community, especially after coming off a hard winter, and now the weather's warming and the roads are showing that they've been neglected for years. Our roads are owned and operated by the Road Commission of Oakland County.
Right.
So we're at their will of what they can do and what they can't do. They don't get enough funding to get into our neighborhood roads. So
So where is their funding from?
Mostly from the state through the Michigan Transportation Fund, which is shared amongst 83 counties. And then so they determine stop signs, yield signs, speed bumps, any kind of road fixes. That's all up to them. Now in the township with our DPW department, we can do some patching and we can do some overlays, but our budget's so small that we can only maintain about 2 miles of roads a year with our budget the way it is, and we have over 200 miles of roads. And within the community, we have a mix. We have public roads, we have some private roads, but we have a lot of dirt roads also that need to be maintained.
Well, let's see. The dirt roads.
Dirt and gravel.
Yes. I'm thinking of the one. Well, what are the dirt roads that are around here?
Well, there's plenty of them, but the ones that I come to mind right away are by Gilbert Lake
Yes.
there.
Oh, yes,
Yep.
of course,
And then
yes.
also out by just north of Square Lake and Woodward, which would be on the east side. Before you get to the hospital, there's a beautiful area there that is dirt roads and beautiful homes and gorgeous
Yeah.
lots, 2+ acre lots.
What's the one? There's one on Long Lake going west, just past the high school.
Okay.
It's not Vaughn.
Echo Lane.
Yes.
Yeah, Echo Lane. And that's
Yes.
I think that's called a natural beauty, and I'm not using the right term, but that's a designation they have.
Okay.
So it has to be kept up a certain way, and that's actually a state road, right? So within even some of our paved roads, we have other neighborhoods with the dirt roads, so DPW's constantly out there regrading and trying to fill the potholes. Coming through the winter, those are very difficult to maintain because if they're frozen and they start to thaw, you can't scrape them because it'll turn into a mud bath, so they have to wait for the weather to turn to dry up. But they try and use rocks and filler to get through the season. So we have some heavy challenges with our roads.
Yes.
Because we don't have a funding mechanism in there to fix our roads. Now, the state is looking at trying to create more funds available to get down to the neighborhood and local roads. And I think that's been the big debate in Lansing right now. And they're working on the budget, and that's going to take a while to work through.
Do we have that patch of road on 14 Mile where 14 Mile and Franklin converge at the Franklin Cider Mill? Or is that,
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? It's dirt road.
Yeah, that's dirt road. The township ends, I think, before you get to the cider mill.
Okay.
Yes.
Because my son and I were just there, and it's terrible. The roads
Yeah,
were terrible,
were
and
they?
it
Yeah.
made me think of it.
Yeah, our roads
Okay.
are terrible. I get emails constantly every day.
Yeah.
And you hear these stories. This one gentleman wrote me, his son was riding his bicycle at the end of a driveway, hits a pothole, goes head over heels. I mean, this is bad. And I had a mother who wrote me that she can't push her babies down her road
Yeah.
because of all the potholes. I
It's
mean, this is
bad.
not a situation our township should be in, especially with the taxes we pay and the expectation of our residents.
So what happened? So if you say, damn it, I need to fix this road, what do you...
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Fix those damn roads,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So what's your process? What would you do?
Well, now what we'll do is the DPW responds, and they're very responsive to go out and they'll patch them,
Okay.
pothole patch them.
Yeah.
But our potholes are holding the roads together now. That's how bad it is.
It's disgusting.
It is. So we started a road advisory committee, and we have, there's 9 of us on the committee, 8 residents from different homeowners associations that are now on the committee as an advisory committee to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees of how to move forward in a plan to hopefully fixing our roads. So we've had a couple of speakers come in, one from the Road Commission of Oakland County, Gary Petrovich, who's the, I forget his role, but he's like the second in command next to Dennis Kohler that runs it.
Okay.
Gave us a great background on the funding that they have and how far it goes and the challenges they have. We had in our director, Noah Mahalski, to talk about how much money he has to work with and what they can accomplish. And then we're going to have our state rep, Donnie Steele, come in to talk about the funding issues in Lansing, as well as our finance director, Jason Tice, is going to come in to talk about all the millages that we have right now and the special assessment districts. So we're educating the committee on our financial situation, the background, and then I've asked residents to come in and also speak during the open public comment time
Yes.
to tell us their stories so we get a good education on what's going on and to help us hopefully find a direction that we can take to create some funding so that we can start really fixing our roads. Because right now, you can do what's called a special assessment district in the neighborhood, which is a petition drive to instruct the county to fix your roads, and the residents will pay for it. But those special assessment districts, otherwise known as SADs,
Yes.
or a SAD, is extraordinarily expensive. And it's to the point where there has to be some sort of underlying financing to pay for these roads, for at least overlays and fixes.
Right.
And then if it's a complete tear-up, maybe we can bring those costs down. But we'll have to see. We have a long way to go.
Wouldn't you think that roads and safety are probably the two sweet spots of the residents? If you had to
Oh,
ask
yeah.
your average person, what do you care about?
Oh, I think absolutely.
Yeah.
I think public safety is number
Yes.
one. And we're fortunate in the township because we have our own police department.
Right.
Right.
And what do you hear in terms of public safety? I don't hear anything anymore about those,
We have
the
'em.
South American
Yeah,
gangs?
they're still
or-
out there. They
Oh.
come in every once in a while. Yeah,
Well, the news on that has died down then.
Well, it happens, but they've been working with the sheriff's department, and Sheriff Bouchard has done a wonderful job of organizing the local departments along with working with the sheriff's department to crack down on this. And I can't discuss the plan they have, but I think they're doing a incredible job of staying on top of this problem.
Yeah.
They know who's out there.
Okay,
It's just you
good.
don't know when they're going to hit.
I assume if I'm not hearing about it, it's disappeared, but that is
No, they're
not
out
the
there.
case, so
Right.
everybody's still
They've
beware.
arrested a few.
Yeah.
They've arrested them, and
Yeah.
they prosecute them. But once they pick up one gang, there's 5 more that will move in. So it's a constant issue. But the other issue we have too is traffic with the I-696 eastbound shutdown. We are seeing an extraordinary amount of traffic on our roads right now, mile
know.
roads, for people finding a new way.
I know.
And they're using their map system
Yeah.
to get around through neighborhoods. So now we're getting complaints from the neighborhoods about all this excess traffic. And when these people are coming through, they're in a hurry. They're frustrated. And
They're whizzing through.
yes. And so this creates another problem, which means we're going to have to beef up our road patrols, which is going to experience some additional costs for us. So I've been talking with our police chief about that. And
Who's our police chief?
Jimmy Gallagher.
Okay.
And he's been with us a while, and he's on top of it. So we're going to have some overtime, which is going to be additional cost because we have to patrol these neighborhoods
Yeah.
to slow down this traffic. And also this extra heavy burden creates other accidents, which means that takes time for the police to respond, where we'd just like to keep them in the neighborhoods and
Yeah.
patrolling the roads.
Right.
It's a challenging time.
You wouldn't think there would be so much spillover from the construction,
Oh,
but that's right. Now that you mention it,
everywhere.
I can, yeah.
Oh, I was driving westbound on Hickory Grove last week, and the eastbound, it was so backed up, I was shocked.
Yeah.
And these are residential neighborhoods. They don't.
100%
they're not built to
residential, I
handle this type
know.
of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, challenges. So these are things that we're dealing with, as well as other issues within the township. And we're fortunate because we do have a DPW department. We have our own assessing department. We have our own police department. We have a wonderful fire department. We're very fortunate to have these for a township.
I remember having the prior township supervisor on, and she was talking about, could it have been a dilapidated firehouse?
Well, we
The
have
one
a-
on maybe Maple?
Yeah, Maple and Telegraph.
Okay,
We're
is
looking at replacing that right now.
Okay.
So
Is
we've-
it dilapidated or
it's
it's
out
run
of
down?
date. Yeah, it's
Okay.
out of date.
Okay.
It needs to be rebuilt. And so we're working on that. We've asked Lansing for some funding on that, so we're hoping to get some funding to help us to rebuild that.
Okay.
We'd like to move it a little bit, but we've not been successful in finding another piece of property in that area. It's a very tight area, so when they come back on a call,
Yes.
they kind of have to block traffic to back the truck in, and then
It's on Maple right past the old theater, right?
Right,
That's
yeah,
where
well,
it
the
is, yeah.
theater's been torn down, so
Yes.
we really need some help in finding a piece of property in that same area, because we need it in that same area for response and response
Yes.
time. And we right now have not found another area. We can rebuild where we're at, but if we do that, that means we have to move out of there, find a temporary area, which we can do it, but it's going to be difficult. Tear it down and then rebuild what would be a higher, taller structure, so that we can get the new trucks in there that we need with the ladders.
Yes.
And then with the people, the firefighters that stay there, because they're on service 24 hours a day, means they'll have to be upstairs, with their quarters. So it's a challenge. We can do it, but we sure would like to have a little bit larger piece of property to build on and then move everybody into.
Are you scoping anything out or?
We looked at one piece, but it got turned down by the people that had it up for sale. It was a little bit too residential. And then we're looking at trying to contact a business owner with some other property nearby to see if they'll have a conversation with us.
But it needs to be up on that, like, Maple Road area.
Maple and Telegraph.
Yes, because how many firehouses does Bloomfield Township
Right.
have?
4.
So there's the Maple and Telegraph, there's the one right here by the high
Right.
school.
That's right.
Where are the other two?
There's the other one on the east side of town by Eastway Schools, I believe it is.
Oh, by the.
Right, that's Station 2.
Okay.
Right, and then, let me think, you got me here, because there's Central Station here, there's Maple and Telegraph, there's one by East Hill Schools, and they're all in quadrants, so and I'm sorry, I forget where Station 4 is, but
Yeah.
they're spread out, so like if you were to divide the township into quadrants.
Oh, it's
they're
all-
handling
okay.
Quadrants, right,
But Central Station is here.
right next door
Yeah.
to us here.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
okay. And what about economic development? What's going on in Bloomfield Township?
I work with the Oakland County Economic Development Group, as well as the Detroit Regional Partnership, and then the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And we've talked about a couple of projects.
Aren't we very economically developed, though, just generally, or is
Well, we're
that-
more residential. We're heavy residential. We have a very small business community compared to some other communities.
Well, my firm's in Oakland County, I guess, or in
Right.
Bloomfield Township, so I guess
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
don't have a.
Well, we were lucky. We did get a nice new business in a couple months ago called Atel Design. It's right off of it's off of Telegraph, just south of Maple, on the east side.
Yes.
And they're owned by Audi.
Yes.
And they do some really neat designs with the car interiors. And some exterior work, and then they do also, they're showing me some chairs they're designing for the commercial furniture industry. So it's an engineering company, a design engineering company. So we're very fortunate that they came into Bloomfield Township.
It's on Telegraph. Did you say?
By near Mex.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
You know, did I see some kind of indoor golf place up there too?
Yeah,
What's that?
there's a simulator golf that's opening up near Leo's Coney Island,
Yes,
Maple
I
and
saw
Telegraph,
that.
near
Okay.
the Restoration Hardware store.
Yeah.
It'll be a restaurant, and then a simulated golf, and that's going to be opening up soon.
That might be a good one for the residents.
It is, and then we're also going to have another restaurant that's going to open up next to Carl's Golf Land in that little strip mall just
Yeah.
to the north, and it's going to be it's called a slider streetcar. There's one in Birmingham. There's actually, I think, 8 or 9 of them
I do know
around
it,
the area.
yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that because the prices are very good on the food.
Yeah, and it's good for the teenagers.
Well, there's a bar in there, so maybe more adults.
It's bad for the teenagers.
Yes, but it'd be good for the golfers next door, right? And for
Yes.
families because
Yeah.
I went in there and their prices were very good. They have tap beer, they also have a full bar, but they make burgers and hot dogs, but they're creative in the way they make them. Like I had a Philly steak hot dog. It was wonderful. And then but the burgers are a little smaller than a regular sized burger, so you may order like a plate of burgers and different
Yeah.
and then you share them.
Is this the? You said there's one in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
this
right
the
at
place?
Willits, where the Willits is located.
Is that by the old Jacobsons? Is that the one
Yeah,
I'm thinking?
yeah,
Okay.
right. There's like 3 restaurants in a row.
You can tell who grew up in this area
Right.
by their references,
Oh
right?
yeah, Jacobs's was the best. We missed them with the Christmas decorations.
It was
and
the best.
It was, yeah, and the Macus restaurants.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, the Macus.
right.
Yes.
Yep, and the pastry shop.
How can you forget the pastry
Yeah,
shop?
it's great.
What about Joanne Fabrics? Any idea what's going to happen there? Because I've got some ideas, but
Do you?
I'm not an economic
Okay.
developer.
Well, we'll have to talk and find out. Yeah, but that's a strip mall owned by a resident, and I'm sure they'll get another good tenant in there because
It's
that's a
a
nice
super
space.
space,
It's a
isn't
big
it?
space, right? So, and then we're working on some other developments with the regional partnership right now, and with Oakland County Economic Development on some property and some development, but we don't have large swaths of land to come in and like build a headquarters for some company.
Right.
So we work with what we have.
Do you have to work much with other townships or cities, or are you mostly just Bloomfield Townships centric?
No, we do. We work with our surrounding communities
Okay.
regularly. And anyway, especially with police and fire, because they back up each other. Number
Oh,
one,
sure, right.
Right. And so we always want to have a good relationship with our neighbors and with the county and with the state. Yeah, we have a good relationship with the Birmingham people, the city of Bloomfield Hills,
Yeah.
Pontiac, As a matter of fact, Tim Grimel, the mayor, and I served together in the State House. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and they're actually using some of our property for a temporary DPW office right now, because as they build one, they needed somewhere to go for their trucks, and so we're happy to work with them. And we actually, in Sylvan Lake, we do all their assessing for Sylvan Lake Village.
Oh, okay.
Right, and I think we're going to look at maybe doing some assessing for some of the other smaller community to help them out.
So was it more difficult being a state legislator or being a township supervisor?
Well, a little different role. You're a policymaker at the state level, and it's a larger district, and you're working with all your local communities, understanding their challenges as well, with the residents. And then it is more of a hands-on administrator when you're working for the township, actually running a business. And, and we're a service industry. That's what we do. That's what the township operation is. We service our community and hopefully service them at the level of their expectations. And you're not going to make everybody happy, but you're going to do the best you can to provide the public safety that they need, and we need to find a way to find better roads.
Yeah.
And then the other issue that we hear about are water and sewer rates, and those are real challenges right now that we have to work with.
Yeah, it's probably the third issue after roads and crimes, water and sewer.
Yeah, with our infrastructure, our aging infrastructure.
Do citizens call you up and complain?
Yes, they do, and they do, and
How do they get to you? Like if they're really upset about something and they say, damn it, I need to talk to McCready. How
Yeah.
do they get to you?
they call my office,
And
they leave a message, and I'll try and call them back.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, I'll try and
Okay.
call them back, and there's some issues that, there's it's already been settled, but they're not accepting the settlement, and there's not much more you can do.
Yeah.
So it's hard to continue a conversation when there's nowhere to go, but I understand their frustration, but we have issues that are settled through our planning board, our zoning board, and through board of trustees that we have to live with and move on.
Yeah, it's like we as citizens don't really understand who else you need to answer to.
Right.
Right? I might say, this thing needs to get fixed, but I call you and then you tell me, well, there's 5 other entities involved, so I can't really.
Well, especially with the road commission, because they
Yeah.
own our roads, and people don't understand how they own and operate our roads and are responsible for them, and you have to explain it to them, and it's still, well, you're still the township, you're here to maintain our roads, but we don't own the roads.
Well, it's counterintuitive
And
that Echo Road is state-owned.
Yeah, it's a state road.
How did that even happen?
Yeah, I don't know the history there, but
That's
it's a
crazy.
beautiful road. Yeah,
Spectacular.
it's a natural beauty road. It was some.
The kids, the
beautiful-
track team runs on it, the
They do?
cross-country team. That's
Yeah.
how I know about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have a lot of challenges, but I know, now in your private life, you're a defense attorney,
I'm a defense
right?
attorney,
So
yes.
you know what it's like to go against people and try and make settlements and find,
It's tough,
isn't
yes,
it?
yeah. And I'm the underdog. I go to court. If I'm representing you, you've been charged with a crime.
Right.
And I go to court. I'm facing a prosecutor who thinks they have the moral high ground. I'm facing a jury who probably has already decided you're guilty without hearing the evidence. And I'm facing a judge who I guess I won't comment on what the judges are like, but it's tough.
I bet.
Yeah.
And you concentrate at the federal level?
I was a former federal prosecutor. So I started my practice doing only federal criminal law, white collar defense mostly.
Okay.
Healthcare fraud primarily. But I grew up in Bloomfield Hills and I'm pretty visible in the community. So now and then I might take some local crimes that get charged. The good thing about running my own firm is I can just pick and choose. So it really, you walk in and I see what kind of person you are and assess it against what the charges are and then make a decision.
So we get a lot of white-collar crime in our area?
We get a lot of white-collar crime in our area, yes, and we get a lot of healthcare fraud in our area.
That's too bad.
Yes, yeah.
Because we all pay for that.
You know what? We all do, yeah.
And healthcare is so expensive these days.
Healthcare, if I told you what I pay, I'm a solo practitioner.
Sure.
And you wouldn't believe what I have to pay just for myself, to speak nothing of my kids. It's
I'm sure.
It's very, I don't know the solution, but it's very, very onerous.
So let's switch the tables here a little bit and tell us about your business. When you find a white-collar crime in healthcare, what is it that they're doing?
The charges are generally that they're improperly billing Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross. For example, the charge might be, if I'm the person being charged, the charge might be that you came in and I did a 15-minute examination on you, and I billed for 30 minutes or 45 minutes because that's how the billing works in healthcare fraud. Now, sometimes that might be an oversight on my part. Sometimes I might have a biller who's not billing properly, and that can be corrected. Sometimes it might be deliberate. I might have deliberately said, oh, I could make a little more money here if I bill for a longer visit, and nobody will be the wiser. I have found that the truth is always somewhere in between. I mean, I don't think anybody is 100. When charges are levied, there's always room to negotiate. I don't think the government's charges always fit the conduct. I was explaining it to somebody the other day. I might walk into a 5 and dime store and steal a bottle of Coke, but the government will charge me with trespass, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, a variety of crimes. Yeah, so at some point the act gets lost in the charges, and that's part of my battle.
I bet.
So, yeah.
So they add on to the crime if there really is a crime.
Famously add on, yes.
Yeah.
It's called overcharging.
Yeah. Well, we read in the paper about some of these things that happen, and it's very unfortunate. But you hear about the Medicaid and Medicare fraud situation.
Yes, and that's where all you hear about is the overcharging. You're not going to, I'll just talk generically. I'll just talk generically. You might hear about a doctor who's charged with 45 counts of healthcare fraud. But those 45 counts of healthcare fraud might only pertain to 5 separate acts, and each act has given rise to 9 charges. It's that kind of crazy. Yeah,
they've added on to it.
Yeah,
like you said, the trespassing, the other issues.
Yeah, so the truth, it takes a while to get to the truth.
I bet, and to go through and litigate a case like that takes years.
Years. And takes a lot of money, too.
I can't imagine the
because
cost.
Your practice is on hold, and you're paying for a legal fee that nobody has ever anticipated paying for. You know, we put aside money for our healthcare expenses and our auto insurance and our mortgage and all this other stuff, but nobody puts aside money for...
Legal fund.
No, who would?
Right. Comes right off the savings in the bank.
Yeah, so it's... Yeah.
That's got to be very difficult.
It's difficult. It's difficult for all parties.
So would you be considered then an attorney that would be appointed by the court if they were, what's the term called? When
if an individual doesn't have enough money to hire an attorney, they get a court-appointed attorney. I am not a court-appointed attorney.
Okay.
You have to apply to be in the court-appointed list, and to be quite honest...
At the federal level.
Yeah, at the federal levels. I think I applied like 4 years in a row and didn't get on.
Okay.
So I stopped applying.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're so then you would retain me. I'm a private attorney, so you would have to pay for my services.
So as a private attorney then, and you're representing usually what, doctors?
Yes.
Or medical professionals?
Let's say medical professionals.
Called medical professionals?
Yeah, doctors,
and
nurses,
at some point,
physical
the pot's
therapists.
got to run dry for them.
Yes.
I mean, so that's a challenge for you.
Well,
to continue the practice.
Very much so. And so I have to be mindful of that because really your average person can't walk in and afford to pay for a trial that's going to take me 2 years to prep.
I can't imagine what that would be.
I know.
Financially.
Exactly. So it's a challenge for all parties. But, I want to do the right thing, and I end up, if I believe in the client and I think there's a way to maneuver, then I want to take the case and go to trial. That's what we went to law school for.
Right.
So it's worked out.
So where did you go to law school?
I went to Emory Law School.
Okay.
And then I got my master's in English at the College of William and Mary in Virginia.
Yep.
And I'd gone to University of Michigan undergrad.
Okay.
My dad made all 4 of us stay in state.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been practicing?
I'll say over close to 25 years. Yeah. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a good ride. I was a prosecutor. I was a city prosecutor. I was a federal prosecutor, and then I left to start my own firm.
So you were actually prosecuting these cases before now that you're defending.
Yes, which is why I think people like to hire me, quite honestly, because
Right.
you come in and say, this is my charge, and I can tell you right off the bat how you're going to be prosecuted.
Okay.
I can troubleshoot almost everything that's going to happen in the courtroom. And I think it's why people come to me. So
I
it's
bet.
been a good practice.
You've got good experience.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you,
sorry,
thank
pardon me.
you.
Yeah.
Mike, it's been good having you on the
Yep,
show. Will you
thank
come back?
I'll come back, yeah.
I don't want you to get tired of me, so maybe I won't make you commit, but
No,
maybe
we'll
in a
find
few
some time.
months
Yeah,
or,
yeah, whatever works out, fine.
okay.
Yeah, but thank you for having me.
Mike McCready, Township Supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining in to AP on Play, and we'll see you next time.